soldiering on because, loading a video up gives me a little bit of a oomph towards playing a little more. And I pushed my way to ground unit movement. Nothing too exciting happening. There will be before ground unit movement on the Allied turn because what are we going to see? I may, I don't know if it's necessary, attempt a guerrilla attack on the anti-air gun just to show that off. It's not a big deal. It's just a bombing attack that costs insurgency points to use, so it's not that big a thing. But I'm looking at this line, and it's a lot tougher than it would seem. I'm not in great terrain or whatever, but there's enough units on it. Remember, I have to attack all the units I'm adjacent to if I attack. It's not like, your Avalon Hill Classics or old SPI ones where you have mandatory attacks, but if you attack, you have to make sure that all units nearby are attacked, which means that this kind of solid line here is really a disincentive. So I'm going to aim for the, hole in the line, which to some extent was put there on purpose, not to attract the Sandinistas in, but more, although it kind of does that, it gets them into this rough terrain, but more because I really wanted to recover some units and fill in and everything, and I have enough zones to cover things, and I'm not exposing my most important locations, but it is an opportunity, and it's really the only one. Otherwise, I'm looking at, outside of soak off type stuff, I'm looking at making, one stack against one stack attacks, and those aren't going to come out much better than 1-to-1. A little bit of soak manipulation, I could get some 1-to-1 attacks generating a 2-to-1, maybe on the on the city or something. I don't even know if it's a city. It's just a town. Which means no retreat evasion. That's a problem. We got cities back here, but I want to hold the line as much as possible. Anyway, that's what we got. I think we have our attacks defined here, maybe here, but I don't know. I put an engineer there and have armor. I'm just not sure I can cut it. And try to bust the FDN out of the way so that they're not holding the left flank of the Honduran army. And then the ceremonial placement of insurgencies, which will all get bombed away. Okay, we did some damage here, didn't make that attack over there. Used one air unit to give me the +3 down here. That's really about all I can do. Moved some helicopters up to deal with FDN because maybe I can actually do something over there outside of AWACS range. Oh, what does that give me? Well, now I'm up to the repair stage, and this is an interesting moment because I could begin repairing Tegucigalpa, which, remember, got damaged. If I can get that up to sort of a full strength airfield, that's kind of an interesting thing. I throw some EW in there, etc. Except I can't defend it. If I'm outside of my whole Air Force, it's just going to get shot up. Not just while it's getting repaired, but also even if I put air units down there. So there's just not a whole lot I can do by gaining that. So I'm not going to waste the effort on looking that sucker up. I do have some reinforcements coming. Don't know what they are. Gotta find my right place. So this is all the communist stuff. And then we hit here. Turn 6, I get 10 insurgency points for this. Is my grand reinforcement points. Which, yes, I'm using up insurgency points, but so what, really? I mean, it's not going to impact things. We're basically just in the process of seeing, am I capable of continuing to gain ground? Or is my army going to be destroyed by the air power of the Allies. And that's really the big question that we've got in line right now, and that's it. Huh. Okay, let's show off the guerrilla attack rolls. Again, I'm just kind of trying to uh, show off the system here because I have enough force that I'm going to be able to take that anti-air out. But by taking it out otherwise, I can launch an air attack to support it. And this is the first turn I can do this, so that's great. Okay, so what happens is, because it's in a hex with an enemy zone of control, I have to spend 2 insurgency points to attack the hex. Well, to attack an object in the hex. I'm allowed to make up to 2 attacks on the hex with 1 stack, but I don't want to do that. I've got 4 units, insurgency units. Because I'm attacking an anti-aircraft gun, which is not a bridge, I'll be getting a bombardment value of 2 per. That gets me to 8. I'm only allowed to use 1 stack at a time. So that is 8 against a non-mobile AA unit. I basically need a 6. This is not going to have any modifiers to it. I'm really just wasting the points to show how it works, because this is not the best way to handle the situation. But hey, if I get rid of it, I maybe speed things up a little bit. So, okay, I do not. But there's no harm except the insurgency points, and I'll be getting more of them next turn. Now, obviously I've worked my way through here already. Oh, shit. I did the reorg. I actually went through the movement, so I'm up to the insurgency placement. I've got none to place. I am allowed to disband some insurgents. The problem with this, although I have some weakened units back here, I kind of need them for my line for a little bit longer. I'm protecting the CIA headquarters up here. So I don't think I'm going to disband anything. You can see El Salvadorians have been moving forward, taking up their positions on the line. Honduras moving across. I think I failed. I don't think I placed that this turn. So let's recover it. And that's going to get me to the air missions, where, again, I'm going to be using bombardment for the most part to try to win the war, for whatever that's worth. Now, one thing I wanted to mention that I haven't been doing, that's sort of a part of the game, and we didn't see it because we didn't see any of kind of the intermediate non-intervention, the intermediate conventional game. Once you get to the intervention game, you're starting to talk about so much air power that it kind of makes it difficult to do, which is the concept of insertion. You might see something like me trying to move forces back here or something outside of Messiah where they can't be intercepted. That's something that I'm kind of leaving out of this play. Because this is so sort of straightforward military scenario, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do it. And it's something that I haven't really shown. But it's basically just, moving troops either with the paradrop or with the helicopters to get them into place. And then what do? Well, that's the whole question, Paradrop could cut a supply source or something like that, or, and that could be important, or maybe hit some kind of exposed resource like an AA gun or something that isn't well defended. You might be able to take out some installation along those lines. You might be able to cut off supply lines. Well, not just supply lines, but retreat paths by dropping a couple of units into a location. Kind of standard military type stuff there. Another thing is you could insert insurgency units, which can then do stuff like this behind the lines, blow up installations and things that they couldn't actually take because there's enemy units in them. That whole side of the war is kind of getting short shift here because this is a pure intervention scenario. If it had started out at a lower level, You might have seen some more of that, but I'm fine with what I've got. I've played a lot of them at that lower level, and it just really isn't that. There's not that much more, you know. There's just not that much more to like being able to do those little behind the scenes things, and they add more complexity to it. But the big thing is there's just too much fucking air power in this game to do much of that, you know. And I've got bigger goals in mind, like dealing with this. Yes, I could slowly move my helicopter units over and maybe protect Arda or something. But the stuff that's up here is actually really vital. Oh, yeah, I think this is legal. I'm not going to look it up. It's either that's the last row they can be in, or it's not, and they can only be in the 1800 and over. I'm going to make it the last row because whatever. It makes sense because that's the Jungle Mountain line there. Yep, and I'm avoiding playing by chattering as usual. Okay, I'll do some bombardment. Bombing runs, I think, got me 3 steps, maybe a 4th one, but I don't really see it. And that's about what I can get, you know? I mean, that's everything hitting. Of course, I got more units coming in, another aircraft carrier. That's another big strike, like a 10-point strike, you know? That's what I'm dividing it up to. Obviously, I'm not challenging the Nicaraguan Air Force. Why? Well, because that'll be within the Messiah range, and my goal is these guys. You know, I want to break that attack up. There's nothing that can really be done about it. And I didn't even come in range of this guy's EW, I don't think. Or I think I didn't. I certainly came close. I was hitting around here and down there. But yeah, I mean, it's just take the most advantageous hits I can. And I think I blew my whole wad there. There was something I wanted to say, but I don't remember what it was. So, I guess we just go on to the ground combat. And this turn, so one of the things is I actually had more firepower this turn because I'm not launching an attack with El Salvador. I'll be hitting them again next turn. I'm not doing some other things. And I've got some planes that need to move around, some helicopters that need to move around. Let's just get this guy out of there. I don't know what he's up to. But he doesn't want to be there. Ooh, I know one thing I was thinking of was shifting my air power in El Salvador. I don't think I have an airport over here, and I don't really see one down here either. So I think I'll just keep them where they are. But I'm not really thrilled with where they are. I would like to get them shifted closer in, because some of the planes there are not incredibly long distance. But yeah. All right, let's do my ground combat. And that was pretty successful. We wiped out the 2 units that were remaining. That's a total kill this turn of 3 good infantry units. So 2 more stacks to that total, 5, or 2 more steps, 5 steps total. That's not going to usually happen, though. I'm going to have to figure out, you know, a threat here, whatever. I'm going to start bringing the war further and further down the line, and controlling this road, assuming I don't use the more complex supply rolls. I can actually get quite deep into Nicaragua and provide, if I can bust through here, I can provide enough of a threat that Nicaragua might actually have to fall back. At the very least, they're not going to be able to afford to continue attacking. But the other thing is, I've been holding my reorg points for Nicaragua in terms of not rebuilding some of these units. These guys I want to rebuild. They're my regular infantry. They're the top stuff I've got for infantry. Anything else for this turn? I didn't bother with any reserves. These are all in reserve, so yeah, let's move some of them. And let me see if there's anything else. Not much else that I want to do. The big question here is where I want my AWACS to be. And I'm going to put it here, even though that overlaps with this. Remember, Naval and Air Force don't combine. And also, I want to be able to hit stuff down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I want to be able to hit some of the stuff that's, threatening the Honduran line. Because rather than particularly worrying about clearing this up and putting a bigger threat on them, that's going to take me a while for that to develop. And certainly, like down here, would be really iffy, but it could make Arda's life a lot better. I think we're at the end of the turn. I placed the reinforcements. We're going to be here. Question of whether or not I want to land U.S. troops. Part of me says, yeah, I want to play out, I said this before, I want to play out more of the system, show more stuff. But honestly, I'm going to let the role-playing aspect of it take charge here and say, no. The U.S. government is not feeling threatened enough. We feel like air power alone is holding the line, and we're not going to lose more ground in Honduras. And with the FDN doing what they're doing, we should be able to break the Nicaraguans up. I would kind of stop here because I do feel like last turn I didn't feel like I understood where we were definitely going. This turn I really kind of do, but I got a lot of stuff to clean up. And I might as well finish up this video even if it's going to take me the rest of the week to do very little on video. I always view as kind of a bone, but it's probably better for you. I looked at some of my old videos. They're just so different. When I did Burma, every couple turns I would come in and just tell you what happened over those couple turns instead of like standing around babbling forever about things. And my videos were limited. I don't remember what the limit was. Most of them were like 6 minutes long, but they couldn't be longer than 15 minutes. And I'd post one every few days. But they'd be really short. Just giving you kind of a key as to, hey, this is what happened over the last couple of days in the game, and that's great, yeah. Nowadays, I think I just love to hear my voice so much. I don't know. It's not like I listen to myself on the videos. It's just like I love to have somebody to talk to. And life is different for me, Back then, I had more time to play and more interaction with other human beings. Nowadays, my interaction with other human beings is almost entirely over the phone. For the past 5 years or longer, 7 years, I don't know. However long I've been working from home, basically. Right then. Actually, I wish I had covered this last turn on the previous video. I could have just called it then. I think I'm going to do this, so anyhow, I know this is going to be a tiny video. But what we've essentially seen, I'm looking through the Sandinista forces. They are not going to be able to push the line significantly further. They might get lucky on attacks, but I'm looking at the attacks that I'd be making. First of all, if I wanted to attack all along the line, what are we kind of looking at here? 2, 3, 4, 5... to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're looking at one-to-one type attacks. Those don't work very well. Even in rough terrain, a one-to-one gets me to something like this, which isn't a terrible line. I can cause more attrition than I take, but I am going to be taking the attrition from them, those bombing runs, and there's just nothing I can do about it. And while that's happening, it's very obvious FDN, I don't have the forces to back up and defend against them without pulling it from here. And this is already, at best able to do some trades for attrition. I try to look, and there's really no place where I can get a grasp on this, right? The best I can do is get one unit against, or one stack against one stack. Now, yes, I can do a little soak off, maybe get a 2-to-1 here and there or whatever if I do an attack all across the board. If I don't do an attack across the board, it's going to be really, really tough. And at the same time, the bombing load has increased. There's another pile of U.S. aircraft coming in. I started rebuilding some units. Okay, that sounds like a great idea. Well, the 6 points I spent on them leaves me with only 2 reorg points. I could pull units off the line and reorg them. That's cheaper, and I'm going to want to do that. But the problem is, again, I just don't have that dense a line here. I'm not able to, I'm not able to swing around and try to do some kind of outflank or anything like that. I'm stymied. And with the pressure from here, with the bombing campaign coming, with El Salvador going to reduce this and then start putting a threat on here, I gotta withdraw from Honduras. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is a pretty decisive victory for the Allies. Part of me says, well, what the hell else could there be? This scenario felt like it just triggers that way. And that may just be the case. It may be the case that once you get a certain level of Allied commitment, especially U.S. commitment to the game, the communists just aren't going to win. Unless you go over that commitment and decide to start throwing U.S. troops in, at which point, now you're playing with War Powers Act, you've changed the victory conditions, you've changed everything, you're the aggressor. Well, why not just take the decisive victory, which I think is where we're going to be hitting with this. If we look for the victory conditions, whoops. See where we have these here. Well, I have them written down, but we were in We were over here in box 3, the non-intervention versus adventurism, and what do we have here? So these are the defensive, the communists are the aggressors, right? No, FDNR could be considered the aggressors here. But let's take a look. The communists as aggressors had to get the expansion level, which is 4 entrenchments destroyed. We're not getting there. And eliminate regular and ground units. Against FSLN, it's 90 victory points in Central America. We're at about our peak right now at 13. FMLN, capture 12 victory points in El Salvador. They're pressed against the edge. And versus the U.S., assuming the U.S. came in, it would be 20 victory points. But we're not going to bring U.S. troops in. If we look at FDNR, well, between the two, controlling 10 villages, an airstrip, and 2 victory points, and 3 other victory points would give us our expansion victory conditions. It looks like FDN is going to do that. And ARDA, I have barely enough to attrition them down there, but it's a fairly heavy force. I could withdraw some units, not many, and just kind of hem them in down there. But I'm not going to be able to get enough to slow down the FDN. So, even though the aggressors are officially the communists, FDN ARDA looks like they will probably be able to manage their victory conditions for the expansion level. If we go over to the defensive side, well, we're going to have the ground units on the map. No more than 45 victory points to FSLN, easily. El Salvador, no more than 5 victory points to Femlin. Femlin's getting destroyed. I am going to whittle them down in this campaign. That doesn't mean they're permanently destroyed, as I've discussed earlier. And for the FSLN on defensive, let's look at this. Control Managua or Punta Huete. Control the government or treasury, no more than 10 victory points to U.S. This game could become very interesting if I ramped it up to a full U.S. invasion. But again, I just don't believe that that level of aggression is applicable, given that air power alone has pretty much stopped the Sandinistas. That was the big question on the last one. Was that able to happen? So I have the fear that the scenario generation system, which honestly is the thing that I'm most excited about, probably generally creates scenarios that are very hard for the Sandinistas to win. I mean, at least this particular situation, they had all their oomph on the map, but the alliance is going to react to this huge buildup of Nicaraguan forces. So there was enough there to make the initial expansion, not terribly big. And there's plenty of stuff to get those insurgencies in the way. Is there, what if I had devoted myself more to the insurgency? Well, I wouldn't have gotten to Golsigapa then, I mean, I could have gone after the FDN pretty hard. Maybe if I concentrated real hard, gotten close to wiping them out before all that U.S. air power came in and started causing me huge problems. At the same time, I'm not going to make any gains on the Hondurans. That's fine. I only have to get one victory condition, and then my opponent has to say, yeah, I'm willing to accept that you won. But it's not, the game is set up with that kind of role-playing type or situational type of thing. Much like the NSDM game, which I've done a couple of times, twice, and really, really enjoyed what it kind of does. Where it's kind of this free-form, open-ended type thing, where the game masters help determine, hey, how did you do, But you're allowed to kind of make shit up on the fly. Yes, they have a lot of systems to resolve issues, but for the most part, it's what the players are choosing. It's almost like playing a game of Amber diceless role-playing in terms of that, except that, your resources are really your political capital and whatever, military capabilities that you have at your command, which for most of the players is nothing. We were playing the People's Republic of China in one of them, and yeah, I was like commander of the Air Force, so I had real forces. I couldn't just use them, It was much more likely that I would get, if I tried to do something with the Air Force that was against the party, it was pretty damn likely I would just get seized and arrested and lose my position and not have the forces. If enough of the military got together, that would be fine. But this is that kind of situation where I feel like, there's this tremendous capability for simulating out certain situations in this game. Now, the historical big scenarios I kind of stayed away from. And, I mean, obviously the World War III is kind of, what happens if you just pump everything up heavily. But it's more than that because it puts restrictions on you. Missiles of Red October is the bigger version of an SSN scenario. I mean, I'm trying to look to see, hey, what do we have for intervention forces? Like this one looks like a big U.S. Commitment on it. In a sense, these type of situations that are reflected in the scenarios may be more interesting variants on the scenario generation system. And they might generate something that's a little bit more pleasant. I don't remember finding them so. But again, this is not the subject I want to look at. This is a military investigation of the insurgency during an operation and or full military operations within Central America, rather than something that's looking at the deeper political and socio-economic aspects of, trying to win the hearts and minds of the different peoples, etc. That's all just baked in. The only question is what is the preparedness level of the various factions for a given intervention or for a given situation. And then, like you got the cute things like the missiles or whatever, where you're trying to track, something and deal with it, military raids, etc. The SSN one, I think there were some forces for it. The Missiles of Red October probably has a whole lot more intervention going on. But this is the one, this actually comes very close to what I would have liked to have played anyway. I don't think I've ever played something where the U.S. pumped their intervention up so much. I kind of just let them intervene at the level that they were at and got kind of low intervention. I also got low Soviet intervention, so we had kind of probably the war without borders type scenario. What is this? The Contadora intervention. Yeah, this is the Sandinistas moving into El Salvador. Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, I feel like I've investigated this enough, and at least one person likes what they see enough. They want to go out and find it. And I think a couple other people have as well. So it's kind of like hey, that's really cool. I love when the game, is able to shine through enough, and that you can see it through whatever, without my lens particularly blurring it. And I don't see much that's terribly wrong with it, except I find it like watching paint dry. There's just not that much that excites me about it. But again, I don't go into, although I'm playing with all kinds, with the optional rules in theory and everything. I just don't have the mindset, I don't have the mindset to say, oh, and what we need to do is drop some forces to get this air base, and then we get, some planes there to support the attack here. The ranges on the planes are so large compared to the board that kind of operation doesn't seem important. The only place where it really does is where there are these kind of artificial scenarios. I don't know if they're really artificial. There are these scenarios that set up a situation that's not within the scenario generation rules. For example, the SSNs, where you have to try to find them and you're making raids to get them. That really concentrates on that insertion principle. Or there's ones where you go after the government and the treasury. Now, you can go after them in this game. If the U.S. is intervening fully, they want to do those things. They want to try to arrest the government or something. But, that's really just a matter of something else that needs to be protected. You might be able to crack that whole nut just by destroying the Sandinistas largely militarily, although that would not be the most efficient way to do it. Okay, I'm going to load this one up. I'm done. I was, I just couldn't convince myself to do another 2 turns, which is what it would have been. And doing one more turn, we see what's happening. We definitely see what's happening. The line has strengthened enough that there is no further chance of a major breakthrough. Does that mean it's absolutely impossible to get this? Yeah, I think pretty close. I think pretty fucking close. I might get a hex and put some threat on it, but with all that air power and everything, any hex I take, it can be taken right back. There is nothing that, even though they're crappy Hondurans and whatever, I don't think there's any way you can stop that air power from allowing a dedicated enemy from getting a hex. And then with the added threat of the FDN coming in, and the added force and reinforcements of the El Salvadorians, at least on the back burner, there just ain't much to do. All right, let's send it up.